Father, thank you so much for this season. Lord, we are so grateful for the hope that we have because of your Son. Thank you, Lord, that you so loved the world, that you gave your only Son so that we could spend eternity in heaven with you one day and enjoy sweet fellowship with you here on this earth, Lord. I pray, Father, as we approach this season, Lord, that we would focus our hearts and our minds on what it's truly about, and that's you. Lord, as we carry out the business this morning of the school district, I pray that we would seek to honor you in all that we say, in all that we do, that we would submit to your guidance, your will, and your way. And it's in your holy name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A little louder. We're going to start the workshop for December 17th, 2024. I'd like the record to reflect that Ms. Hanson is not present and Mr. Alvaro will be a few minutes late. Just read this. Welcome, citizens of Clay County. I want to take the opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend today's school board workshop. This workshop is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly among ourselves and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and the education of our children here in Clay County. There will be an opportunity for the public to ask questions at the end of the workshop presentation. Questions will be allowed. Public comment will not be allowed. If you wish to ask a question, please fill out a comment card and hand the card to a deputy. Your participation is welcomed and appreciated. And for this meeting, because Mr. Alvaro is a few minutes late, we're going to go ahead and start with the agenda. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr.
Hi, good morning. I hope everybody's doing well. First of all, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to all, and a happy New Year coming up. I don't want to set any expectations on the board, but this is traditionally the shortest workshop of the year. I've done a statistical analysis over the past couple of years, and I'm just kind of throwing that out there to everybody in the room so they can hear that loud and clear. In all seriousness, though, typically those that are observant, I typically have a blue book, and it's usually about 4 times that size. But during the holidays, typically the amount of and the volume of work goes down due to the winter recess and the change of semesters. So in regard to the last meeting, traditionally, statistically, because you know that I love data, statistically the December and the May board meetings have the most celebrations. So while I loved every second of that, I recognize that there was a lot of celebrations that occurred. Usually December and May are the 2 months that occurs the most. On average, the total amount, and I didn't do this data, I did this data for a previous year, the average amount is roughly 26 minutes in a typical meeting, if you average them all together. So this particular meeting, we have recognition of our academic team champions. We've done that before, but on a sad note, the passing away of Greg Martin, who has led that group for a long time, recently has passed away. There'll be a little bit of a remembrance of him. Made such an impact on so many students. He was an Oak Leaf High teacher. Had a smile on his face every time that you talked to him, and it was always about kids, and had a tremendous impact on that. So just a little heads up in that regard for that particular event. And then we have the recognition of our top 5 finalists for Teacher of the Year and School-Related Employee of the Year. As you know, we went out to surprise them on, was that Friday? Okay,
I think it was.
Seems like a long time ago, but it was Friday apparently. and went out to see them. And so just going out to schools, especially this time of year, I'll just kind of remind everybody that the number one objective of school is to provide students the skills that they need in order to be successful in life. Outside of that, you know, and all of the academic stuff is great stuff. As superintendent, you know, being in the top 10 in the state's a big deal, you know, in a competitive sense. But school's also about making memories for students and creating an atmosphere in which students want to be there. I'll just say what I've seen this week and last week, there's a lot of memories being made out there, and the hard work of learning is important all the time, but you're seeing more of the memories being made this week than other weeks, if everybody's reading what I'm trying to put out there to people. Okay, and that's an important part. I always say when I talk to folks about learning, I really don't remember anything I learned as a student during my high school career, but I do remember participating in athletics. I remember the impact of coaches. I remember girlfriends. I remember all of those things that young men remember. I don't remember the Pythagorean theorem and when I actually learned that, right? So there is this part about making memories and the human part of what we do in the lives of young people that we can never lose sight of creating the total student experience. And whether that's through athletics, whether that's through the arts, whatever that is that reaches that student, that too is equally as important as the academic piece in what we do in the school system. So a lot of memories being made this week, for sure. I think I saw, it just so happens that like 3 schools that I went to in a row, they were all having pajama day. And I kind of said, does anybody dress up around here? Well, what happened, right? So all of that. So next we have Human Resources Special Actions. There's none at this point. And that's followed by the minutes from the organizational meeting as well as student discipline hearings. That's followed by the personnel consent agenda. Nothing remarkable in that. That then is followed by elementary student out of town travel and the academic K-12 overnight student travel, pretty routine there. Proposed allocation changes. You notice that there is an allocation change for Assistant Superintendent Business Affairs. Dr. Legucco is retiring in June. I think given the importance of the position, hiring another person early so they can work side by side is extremely important. So that position has been advertised pending board approval of this, and we're already starting that process. Monthly financial reports. That's a typical every month item. Budget amendment report, followed by deletion of certain items. Then you'd see an onslaught of operations. Let me just kind of throw some kudos out to the operations department, but the work doesn't stop. And I was kind of joking, I think, when I said to Bryce, I said, are you sure? Like the construction at Lake Asbury Junior and Oak Leaf Junior, I said, we were there Friday, and I was looking at it, I was thinking, okay, I don't know much about construction, but is this gonna happen? And I kind of, no problem, Mr. Brodsky, I got you on the record, Bryce, and there, it's recorded for everybody to see.
It'll happen.
Okay, it'll happen, okay,
Play
good.
it here.
Good answer. All right, so you can see a bunch of stuff. Some of them are not, are very, very important, but not of the outstanding variety. Orange Park Elementary restrooms, roofing at Clay High, renovations of the restrooms at Orange Park High, 2 of those. The athletic field lighting at Orange Park High School, as well as gym locker room renovations, the updating of the project priority list for capital outlay and debt service projects, Charles E. Bennett, school security lighting at Charles E. Bennett. Charles E. Bennett, the replacement of that and the change order related to that. Doctor's Inlet security lighting there, as well as the change order number 2 for that. Then you see Lake Gasbury classroom additional items, change order to that, which is direct purchasing, which I think the board knows this, but because we're a tax-free entity, we can in fact purchase the items and therefore save the district a lot of money over the course of a project that size. So that's a pretty smart, business move there. Then you see the same thing for Oak Leaf Junior High, Orange Park Elementary restroom renovation final completion, the pre-qualification of contractors, and the work continues to go on. And then you see the Green Cove Junior High CTE lab. So a lot of ops work going on, even through the holidays, and a much more abbreviated agenda. So that's it as far as the agenda goes, Madam Chair.
We'll bring it back to the board and let the record state that Mr. Alvaro is present. I think with confusion and some things that had come up over the, I'm just gonna slide those over.
Sure.
Sorry. His face is sorry. We were gonna bring back the topic and subject of public comment and how we wanted to handle that. Anyways, there's a lot of confusion. So I believe that Ms. Hanson has submitted a statement that Ms. Bonnie's gonna read. And then after that, I will hear from each of you and your thoughts, and we will get a clear understanding on what we want to do as a board moving forward, and then we will move forward from that. So, Ms. Bonnie, you can go ahead.
Okay, so in Mrs. Hanson's words, Mrs. Hanson would like to keep our school board meetings like we were holding them. She wants the cameras always on with the public speaking prior to the superintendent remarks. Mrs. Hanson would also like to apologize for any confusion at the last meeting. She will definitely make an effort to be more clear and concise from now on. She also wanted everyone to know that she is adamantly against any type of censorship of public comment and feels there is great value in what every constituent has to say, whether the school board agrees or disagrees with what is being said. That's all.
Mr. Alvaro?
Yeah, as I stated the first time, I prefer to keep it the way it is. When the public speaks before the superintendent remarks, and we keep cameras on so everybody can have their piece and say whatever they need to say. And everybody in the house can also watch YouTube and be able to listen to what that constituent has to say.
Ms. Gilhousen?
Let Ms. Clark
Okay.
speak first.
Ms. Clark.
Let me get my notes out.
Yes, ma'am.
I was a little confused to begin with that we would make the change. I think you commented that there were, at our board meeting, from what we had made as a consensus. I think you had mentioned that you had multiple phone calls and emails that caused you to hold back. And the funny part is, I got one phone call the day of our workshop, but I did not receive any emails. And you would think, since I brought it to the table, that I would have gotten some emails, and I didn't. We are not censoring anyone. There are people that censor folks off Facebook and all sorts of things. But when our children, who we claim that we're fighting for, are complaining and laughing at us being accused of book banning, then I'm gonna stand up for them. I'm not gonna fall to political pressure. So, I could say a million things, but I know we wanna get out of here too. But, as we know, some counties do not even allow general comments. We're not saying that. And some counties, including Pasco, do not allow the limelight on people who give misleading information. And that's all this is. it's misleading information with some of the general comments. So Ms. Honora would still be taking notes. Our meeting would continue. Everything would be on record. All we're doing is turning off the cameras so the national stage can't emulate that and put it out there. And our students hear about this and are embarrassed and laugh. I mean, what came out 2 weeks ago was just ridiculous. And it's gone on and on and on. And it's wrong information. And if you want to allow it to continue, that's fine, but I'm not up for political pressure, and I'm not censoring anybody. So, that's all I have to say.
Ms. Gilhausen?
So I can definitely see the argument from both sides. I stated from the beginning, to me, whatever the majority wants to do is fine. I don't feel passionately one way or the other. I've been on the board for a long time. We've done collaboration in a host of different ways. Anytime you try to make a change, whatever that change is, you're gonna upset somebody. To me, it's, you fight the battles that are worth fighting. To me, this is one that, whatever the majority of the board decides, it's not a hill to die on.
So I can kind of echo what Ms. Gilhausen has to say, not a hill to die on for me. However, I will say that I did receive multiple phone calls and multiple messages, I should say, because some were emails and some were not emails, they were through Facebook. And I will say that some I know personally and some I don't know at all. I have not one idea. And for me, after receiving these many texts and phone calls and messages, I put myself back in 2020 when I was a nurse, an ER nurse who worked the front lines of COVID and was not the popular nurse at the time, very popular now because I allowed family members to see family members, and the information that I was giving was being censored no matter where I was at, no matter where I went to speak, because I spoke at many events and many meetings in defense of our children. So for me, it will never be political pressure. It will always be, one, what have I went through, and two, what is the right thing to do. So I will say that I don't care where we put it in the agenda. We could put it at the beginning, we could put it at the middle, we could put it at the end, I don't care. But for me, the cameras, I think, should stay on and should still roll, and if people want to get up and say what they want to say, it's either up to us to prove that, hey, you know what, this is what the district is actually doing, this is what the district is performing and how we're performing. I know Mr. Broski presents facts a lot of the time. It's up to us as elected officials to say, hey, no, that's not actually what's happening. This is what's happening. So I know our legal department wanted to weigh in on a few things, but, and then we'll continue and.
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think it'd be helpful just to kind of give some background as far as Florida statute. So Florida statute requires public comment for agenda items. So if there's an agenda item that y'all as a board are voting on, you're required to allow the public to speak on those agenda items, which y'all do. General public comment is not contemplated under Florida statute, it's not required under Florida statute. There's a body of case law where the courts have said it's not required, it's not needed, these are not free speech zones. So y'all could eliminate general public comment and that would not be a free speech issue. However, y'all also are legally sufficient to allow it, y'all have allowed it. The public, I'm sure appreciates the opportunity to come and speak. But ultimately, per y'all's board rules, the chair ultimately decides, whoever the chair is, decides kind of the order of the meetings. Now, that's something that y'all as a board can reconsider, but ultimately, it's up to the chair to decide where this happens. As far as the videotapes, I'm just gonna present you on what the law is. The decision is y'all's decision ultimately, how y'all want to decide. Florida law requires that meetings be recorded, that public sunshine meetings be recorded in some way. So the statute actually outlines that That'd be a brief summary of minutes. There's some local governments that have a court reporter come, that's not required, but some do that. They will actually have a court reporter record the meeting. Some put a videotape. Actually, the courts have found that a videotape does not count as an accurate recording of the meeting. So the actual recording of the meeting is Ms. Bonnie's minutes. Those are the legal minutes of the meeting, not the recording. So there is no legal requirement to provide that. That is a policy decision for y'all to make, and y'all are free to make that decision. I understand some emails, I've seen some comments saying it's illegal to cut the video. It's certainly not. Y'all absolutely can remove the cameras, but that's a policy decision. So y'all are free to make whatever decision y'all make, or the chair can make a decision, and seek for consensus. So the other issue that I just want to address, because it's come up, we've seen some emails, if you allow, Madam Chair. There was a recent federal Court of Appeals ruling regarding how public comment is conducted. So in that specific case, what happened is you had a school board where the chair of the board was essentially cutting people off. So people would come up and speak about COVID. If they mentioned COVID, they were law enforcement escorted them out of the meeting. If they called the superintendent a conservative or a liberal, that was considered abusive, they were removed from the meeting. People were cut off when they were trying to speak. People, mothers simply coming up saying, hey, I'm concerned about the COVID policy, were saying, look, they're gabbled down saying, you're wrong, you're being abusive, and law enforcement would escort them out of the meetings. That is not happening here in Clay County. So what the courts found was that type of behavior was stifling to the public's ability to come and speak. It was stifling to their free speech and their ability to weigh in. That is not happening here in Clay County. Y'all are not doing that, that is not happening, so your board rules are within the spirit of that court ruling. The one nuance and the one tweak that we will look at is prior Florida court law had held that addressing board members directly is not appropriate because y'all are a board, right? So addressing Mrs. Gilhousen or Mrs. Clark or Madam Chair or Mr. Rivero or Mrs. Hanson, that is inappropriate, or the superintendent. So that's been the body of the case law. That Court of Appeals found that the school district's rules on that were vague, not specific, and abusive. So the feedback that's come from that is, hey, the legal interpretation is you can address board members directly. Now our rules say you cannot, so we're going to look at that. But my recommendation is that we don't run up and change everything until we have digested the court opinion. We look at what other courts are doing. Actually, the court in that case directed that school district to revise their policies. We're going to get a copy of those revised policies. And then we will look at our policies. But I want to give you all the assurance that y'all's conduct is within the spirit of the law, within the spirit of the courts, and the efforts to say, hey, y'all are doing something illegal is not accurate. I understand that anyone can read a court ruling and reach their own interpretation, but it's not accurate. Y'all are fulfilling the spirit of that court ruling. You're not cutting people off when they mention COVID. You're not dragging them out of the room when they say something you disagree with. You are absolutely allowing public comment within the spirit of the law. But we will look at the necessary tweaks. We will evaluate that. I will bring some recommendations. We're also going through the Neola process. But y'all follow the law. Y'all do a great job. And I want y'all to have the assurances. So when you get an email saying you're breaking the law, you can take that within the spirit of fellowship and the holiday spirit. But we will evaluate that, and we will come to you when we feel that there is a legal change you need to make. So again, the one issue that we may change is that when we put up that says don't address board members by name, we'll probably go ahead and make that change or remove that. I'm going to talk to the superintendent or our legal team about removing that. That way they can address y'all individually. I think that was very clear in the court ruling. But again, y'all are not crushing, and again, that is for public comment for agenda items. The court did not say that you have to have general public comment, so there is no court ruling that requires that. So again, this is general public comment. Y'all as a board can do this however you want. You can do it at the beginning of the meeting, you can do it at the end of the meeting, you can keep cameras on, you can keep them off. That is up to y'all. As was stated by Mrs. Clark, there are some boards that do not even have general public comment. It's not allowed. You come up and comment on, yes, sir.
So just for clarification, I just heard you say something that intrigues me. So the idea of speaking to the board member directly, individually, was for agenda items, not general public comment?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, so the content they were addressing was specific. You had members of the public addressing the COVID policies, and they were trying to address board members' and they were, the court found that the board was abusive. It simply would, I mean, you had grandmothers that are being dragged out of the room for speaking. That's not happening here. So as far as the court was not specific as to general public comment, or really didn't contemplate that. And really what the court said is, it said, hey, your policy is unconstitutional, revise your policy. Now, obviously, based on that court ruling, all the 67 counties are looking at their policies, because they all had policies forbidding you to address board members directly, because that had been Florida law for generations. So that's the one nuance that's being addressed. But in my experience, I've not seen y'all drag people out of meetings, silence people, cut them off, when they call someone a liberal or conservative. That was the type of, and what the board was saying was, that's abusive language. Like, you calling someone a liberal or conservative is abusive language. Well, it's not. If they stand up there and start cursing at you, that's probably abusive, but just stating a political opinion is not abuse. or saying, hey, I think you guys are wrong in the way you're handling it. That's not abuse, and the court was very clear on that. It listed specific examples, and I can provide those to you I think so y'all seen the court ruling is very specific what the court found. It found that it was out of control how they were handling it. So again, what y'all are doing is consistent with Florida law. Whatever decision y'all make as a board or Madam Chair you make is consistent. But I've seen some emails saying, hey, it's illegal to call off the camera. It's certainly not. There's actually a court case where it said it's not illegal. There's no requirement to do it. The actual record is Miss Bonnie. Like, her typing is the official record. Some school boards have tried to just videotape and that be the official record. The courts have said, no, that's not an official record. You can use that to effectuate the official notes, but that's not the official record. So again, this is a policy decision for y'all to make. I want y'all to feel confident in whatever decision y'all make, because it's gonna be legal whatever y'all do, as long as y'all, are not dragging people out of the room for simply, making comments that you disagree with. You guys can do it. So you can do it at the beginning of the meeting, the end of the meeting, you can keep the camera on and off. You could even look at eliminating public comment. I don't know if that's recommended, but that is certainly within y'all's purview. So I'm sorry for the long monologue, but was that clear? Are there any questions about that? Because I think this is important to make sure y'all have confidence in your decision.
I have none.
Okay.
Okay, so that being said, Ms. Ms. Hanson has said to keep it the same. Mr. Alvera has said keep it the same. Ms. Clark has said she now wants to keep the cameras off, but don't adjourn the meeting, correct? Because before you wanted to adjourn the meeting, this time you want to
Well, I
not
think
adjourn the meeting.
we had agreed we wouldn't before, so I
Okay.
could be wrong. So, yeah, I'm against leaving the cameras on.
And then Ms. Gilhausen is indifferent, correct? Okay, so we're gonna go with consensus to keep the cameras rolling. Mr. Alvera?
May I add something?
Yep, go ahead.
In my understanding, Clay County is one of the best counties in the state, and that's because of the way we do things. We've been doing this for a long time, and we're giving the people of Clay County the privilege of coming and speaking even if we don't have to. That's one of the reasons I would like to keep it the same way it is. We treat them better than many other counties treat their own people. And I want to be able to keep doing the same for them,
May I add to that? During COVID, people would be up north and see that Florida had their schools open. They moved here for that reason.
Mhm.
Now, whether you like it or not, it's misleading info. And they hear that Clay bans books. And everywhere I go, I hear that Clay bans books. And personally, I get what you're talking about with the nursing and COVID, but this is totally different. Banning books is misleading. And we are far better than that. And I would rather spend my time talking about ESE what we're doing for our teachers, and I don't worry about dying on any hill, because I'm at that age, it doesn't matter. But I think that we have more important things to share about the quality of our county. So I get what you're saying, but I think the focus on the national level is wrong. And those people up north now, I'm not sure they'd come here because we ban books. Nobody talks to us about that on the national level. We have to fight it on an individual level. So it's a shame.
I don't think that we're gonna be able to stop it, no matter what way you do it, whether they record themselves and post it, whether they get a news team to come in and record them and post it. My point is that, we as elected officials in a district need to present our reasoning and what we're doing and how well we are doing. Maybe changing up messaging. I mean, if you feel that, or if others feel that that's all that is coming out of Clay County is book banning, then we need to figure out how to push what is coming out of Clay County, and that's exceptional athletes. And the first person that comes to my mind right now is Gary Barnidge. People like Gary Barnidge, who also then gives back to his community. People who have traveled all over the United States, all over the world, who are graduates from Clay County. I mean, we push out exceptional students and exceptional teachers, Florida Teacher of the Year, all of these things. So maybe we need to look at that as an avenue, because we're not gonna be able to stop a story that somebody's gonna wanna write, no matter what. I mean, that's just the media and what we have in today's society, where it doesn't matter what you do. However, I feel indifferent about the cutting of the camera just because what I'm rooted in and who I am. So that being said, if there's no further information, I don't want to drag this on. With board consensus, we'll keep it the same. Like I said, I was indifferent about where we put it. I thought it went well at the end of the meeting, but since the two of you want to keep it the same, we'll keep it the same. And we'll,
The reason I'm voting to keep it the same is because we have had for some time already, Clay County citizens coming and complaining that they want to separate awards from the original meeting, and we are not doing that. But moving it to the end is gonna make it a lot worse for them. Actually, they're already complaining that we are mixing the awards with the meetings. Right? So just keep it the same way, and they probably gonna be.
I would make the argument that talking about students and showcasing students is the business of the board, and therefore that's why it's at the meeting. So I would adamantly say that is the business of the board, and 27 minutes on average is a pittance to pay to celebrate our students.
I would echo that.
I agree with you, but we are not going to separate them, that's the point, you know? So
Right.
staying the way it is the best we can do.
Now, just for clarification as to where it goes in the meeting, I think one of the logics that was expressed by Ms. Hanson was the opportunity for the superintendent to address the comments during superintendent comments. It's a very challenging thing to sometimes individuals come up and they say things that may not be accurate or true, but because of the nature of it, because it deals with either a FERPA issue involving an individual student or a labor issue that can't be spoken about, it's very difficult to say that. So there's no strategic reason to have it at that point right after or right before superintendent comments, giving me the opportunity to, because if you had it at the end, I still have the opportunity to interject if advisable, based on the circumstances. There's a lot of times where I hear information that I know to be inaccurate, but because of the nature of the information that's given, and it could be a liability issue for the district for me to comment on it, I choose not to comment on it. Whether it's a labor issue involving an employee discipline, or a student issue involving FERPA, sometimes the interest of the district requires me to just sit there silently, even though I know that what's been said is false. I don't know if you want to weigh in on that, Mr. Walker.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I haven't had a chance to talk to Mrs. Hanson because she's traveling. And I understand what she's trying to accomplish. I think she's trying to give the district an opportunity to respond to misinformation. The problem is, you all receive emails throughout the month. The superintendent and staff review emails, and a lot of times the legal team, myself and John, are advising not to respond because because of the nature of the school district, we're dealing with confidentiality with student records, with litigation, so it's important for us not to respond. If there's an inquiry to the superintendent about a specific case or a FERPA hearing, those are confidential. His response could trigger a lawsuit to the district for violating that confidentiality. We're actually not allowed to comment on it at all. So that does create a challenging environment. That's one of the things I was going to address with Mrs. Hanson when I had the opportunity. So I appreciate the spirit of what she's accomplishing, giving the superintendent a chance to respond. But many of these cases, we can't respond. We just have to simply allow the public comment and just, respond to the legal process. And I know that's difficult because we all want to kind of answer, but we can't have the superintendent, we can't have board members exposed, or the district or the board exposed to, additional legal challenges. So it's just something to frame it, keep it in mind, and I'm kind of the restraining force behind the scenes. I know recently there's an issue that the superintendent wanted to respond to, and if we, it seemed a very simple matter. I said, look, if you respond to this, it's gonna create issues for the board. So just wanna make sure we're clear on that. I do appreciate what Mrs. Hanson is trying to do. She's trying to give the superintendent an opportunity to respond, but sometimes it's advisable not to respond.
And I could always respond at the end anyway.
In misinformation situations, can you respond?
I wouldn't respond if it was a FERPA issue involving student records or other issues that would then create additional liability for the district. So there are quite a few times where I sit there and I listen and know that the information given is not correct, but can't respond, or it's not advisable to respond legally. But the placement of that time frame, that has nothing to do with it. I can respond to what's appropriate to respond to at the end of the meeting, as well as before superintendent's comment. That part of it doesn't make a difference, because whether it's the end or that part, I'm not going to respond if it's inappropriate to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. If I may, Madam Chair, the chair can at any point, ask the superintendent if it's something that's not confidential or to respond. So if someone at any point during general or agenda public comment makes, a comment that's inaccurate, the chair could always ask the superintendent to respond. So at any point in the meeting, we're not confined to a specific area. And again, I think I understand what Mrs. Hanson was trying to do, was trying to address the misinformation piece, but that can still be accomplished and effectuated by the chair simply recognizing the superintendent and asking him, Mr. Bronski, could you respond to that? Again, I think y'all are all tracking the confidentiality of it, so I think you all know, because y'all talked to me enough to understand. So if it's an issue that doesn't involve confidential records, or it does not involve, some type of pending litigation, then, you could ask the superintendent to go forward. Does that make sense?
Alright, so consensus is leaving it the same. We're gonna end the discussion, so just, I guess, instead of putting it at the end like we had it last time, putting it back up before board comments.
So the way it was prior
Prior
to
to.
last meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Where we split agenda from general.
Yep.
Is that everybody's understanding?
Wait,
We'll do this.
so you're
It's-
gonna keep public comment?
How we had it literally before we had last meeting.
Okay, so we are still splitting general comment and
Yep,
agenda
correct.
comment? Okay.
Correct, we're moving it right back to where we had it, with the two of them wanting it, at the same, because like I said, I'm indifferent on where we have it. It was nice to end it at the end, and still having that opportunity, but I want board consensus on that, so I'll go ahead and keep it the same that we've always had it, allow them to speak, cameras rolling, and then that gives us the opportunity to, which, we still have the opportunity, but even in board comments to speak. Is there anything else with that discussion being over and moving forward, we understand the consensus, correct? Okay, I just wanna make sure we're all clear here. Is there any other board items that you guys wanna speak about, talk about, add to the next agenda to speak about or talk about? Any concerns, any questions? Was that the only statement Ms. Gill, or Ms., now I'm looking at Ms. Gill. Ms. Hanson had submitted, was that it?
Yes, ma'am.
For her, okay. Alright, well, then is there, no questions from the audience, so superintendent comments?
No more happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope all of you spend time with your family and enjoy the holidays and the reason why the holidays exist. I appreciate all of you and your dedication to Clay County Schools. What we do is important, and we should never lose sight of that. So Merry Christmas and happy holidays to everyone.
And school board attorney comments?
Just Merry Christmas.
And then school board member comments, we'll start with Mr. Alvaro.
Just wish Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you guys have a good end of the year and a good beginning in 2025. And let's keep working on getting the schools better and getting our children what they deserve. In the name of God, amen.
Ms. Clark.
I'll go back briefly to what our discussion was, just so everybody understands and is clear. This is not something I just came up with. This is something that for over 2 years, I have had parents talk to me about, and they felt it was a wise decision. So it's not me that came up with this. And at the last board meeting, I did not welcome you. I'm so sorry, everybody else did. Because I felt like, we'd gone to the Oakley fan event together, and we'd gone to the FSBA conference and had our organizational, but welcome for sure.
No
So,
worries.
and Merry Christmas to everybody and Happy New Year. So look forward to 2025.
Ms. Gilligan.
Just Merry Christmas and please take some donuts because I can't eat them all.
All right, Merry Christmas, and just to echo what Mr. Broski said, knowing the reason for the season, and be present with your families.
Yep.
Because you never know who's not gonna be at your table next year. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and with that, this meeting is adjourned.